here they are. And so why don't we go one by one and tell us a little bit about it. Simone, maybe you could start a little bit about how you got into this world, and what brought you to food. I mean, all of you have resumes that aren't the usual resume of your standard General Tso's delivery factory, right? I mean, so let's just talk about. I love General Tso. So let's start. You can just go and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello. I don't think the mic is working.
Here we go again.
But I think you can hear me loud enough, right? Okay. Hello? Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Simone Tong. I'm the chef, co-owner of Little Tong Noodle Shop. I was born in Chengdu. I'm a Sichuanese, proud, part of the bamboo, one of the three kingdoms, and the panda. Then I moved because my parents decided that we want a better future in the 80s, after I was born, early 80s. So we moved to Macau, Hong Kong, after 1999. Honestly, I'm like one of the examples of overseas Chinese. I love China, and then I moved to Singapore. And then after that, I went to Australia. And then after that, I went to UNC-Chapel Hill. Based on usnews.com, UNC-Chapel Hill is one of the really good schools. So I study psychology and economics because it's I always believe economics is macro business. Psychology is the studies of human mind. How do we marriage those two things? Then I went back to Macau, Hong Kong, helped my dad a little bit on the real estates in Chengdu. My mom decided that she's going to retire and open a restaurant. So that's how I got into the restaurant business, first step. Second step was PBS had a After Midnight with Daniel Boulud, one of the most amazing chefs in the world. Third episode, Chef Wiley Dufresne, WD-50. I was like, wow, this guy's crazy. I love the idea of art, science, food, combination and marriage of it. So I was like telling my parents, okay, I'm not going to be a psychiatrist, I'm not going to be an actuarial scientist or statistician, but I'm going to be a chef. My mom's like, you're crazy. No more money given to you. You're on your own. But because of that, I got more encouraged, I got more challenge. I'm like, oh, you're going to challenge me. So I'm not going to go into the typical Chinese family route. I'm going to go on my own. And then I played poker a little bit. Because that's a study of economics and psychology, right? And it's money. So I did some World Series of Poker online and real competition. And then I went to DC, visit my friends and best friends from Chapel Hill. And then I was like, okay, how do I get to work at WD-50? I'm not an American citizen, I don't have a visa. I got into ICE, Institute of Culinary Education.
You guys all know what WD-50 is?
Yes. One of those restaurants.
Very, very avant-garde, advanced, and now defunct restaurant.
Yeah.
Highly thought of.
Yeah. Chef's making donuts now. So, long story short.
He is making donuts.
Yes. Long story short, that's how I learned cooking. Through the 5 years to 7 years I was working with Wiley Dufresne. Me being Chinese, he loves any incorporations of Chinese ingredients, dumplings, wontons. Well, maybe get into that later. But that's.
What was your job there?
I started as a prep cook. I started as working for free. I told Wiley, I'm gonna work for free for you until you hire me. After 7 months.
And so we'll skip it. And now a year ago you opened
Little Tong Noodle Shop,
which is sort of a sensation. And then Little Tong Noodle Shop is.
Yunnan cuisine inspired by Yunnan.
Mostly noodles.
Rice noodles, mixian, rice noodles, and other appetizers.
But inspired by meaning maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's whatever I think and I create after I went to that trip for 3 months.
All right.
Thank you.
It's a very good long biography.
My story story is a lot simple. I was in finance, I was in banking before I became an entrepreneur. I found there was a disconnection between my own life and my banking life. I thought that wasn't me at all. So, me and my partner, who is here as well, we decided to take it as one of lifetime opportunity to try to be ourselves, maybe just once, and to do something we love. That was 6 years ago, and the Chinese food market, the Chinese food scene was quite different back then. Adam knows the best. So we opened up our little shop called Café China.
What were you? We can talk about the Chinese cuisine if you want. But, what did you see? You all have seen, and you saw an opportunity, right? You saw like these poor souls in New York may think they're getting Chinese food, but in fact they're not, right? So
yes.
Okay.
Because I was happy about how the Chinese food was presented. I learned a thing or two about fine things when I grew up, and I thought, the Chinese food presented in New York was a terrible presentation. It's a ruin of something really great.
Really? See, I never wrote that. So you mean the style, the presentation, the style, you mean everything, the taste?
I think people can travel through food. I think food itself can be a journey, experience. So I think everything is part of that experience. So I want to, present my version of what I believe in. I personally designed all my 3 restaurants. But initially with Café China, I was just dreaming about, something of my own ideal. It's very utopian. It's very bourgeois. Until one day Adam came in. It's actually...
No. Well, it's a very classic, it's a 30s Art Deco, right? Shanghai Art Deco, is that how you describe it? And sort of Sichuan food, right?
It is, yeah.
Was the first, it is Sichuan, sorry.
Yes.
And the first, do you have the same chef now? Is Sichuanese chef?
The
Same.
head chef is Chinese.
Same.
It's a different chef.
Different
Yes.
chef.
But since Adam actually visited us one month after we opened, and at the time, we didn't know anything about restaurant or restaurant world. We were still struggling quite a bit. So that was a big surprise to us.
Yeah, they don't like that when you visit them 1 month after they're open. But that's our job.
At the time, I didn't even know who you were.
Well, I'm still trying to figure it out.
But since Adam came in, we drew a lot of attention by other media. New York Times came in, Pete Wells came in and gave us 2 stars.
Other critics, well, that's what they do. Like, so if I had given you 2 stars or 3 stars, he wouldn't have come in. Okay? Don't quote that. Anyway, carry on. 1 star means good, by the way.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we were following your footsteps, and Michelin people also came in.
You're all following my footsteps.
They gave us very prestigious Michelin star.
Well, that's a big deal.
Yes.
And so now you have 3 restaurants now.
Now, yes. I mean, at the time, I didn't plan to have an empire or an institution, but now, under the pressure of the food critics and and the reviews and the Michelins, I think those are good pressures. So I think you are calling the best out of us.
Okay, good.
I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Adam, thank you. So I feel relieved that our restaurant's fast food, so Adam, you never need to go there.
You told me, well, first of all, Yong is like, again, new generation. I mean, he has like multiple advanced degrees from almost every university in the world. So, but he did announce that he was opening this concept in NYU, where I live. So I'll be going there. It's all good.
So my name is Yong. I grew up in Liaoning, Northeast, and then went to college at Peking University for the first liberal arts program in China called the UNC program. I did life science biology in that program. Then I went to Yale 2006. Then for a master's degree, I continued my PhD in environmental science. At the moment, I'm thinking about go back to China to become a politician in the environmental agencies to figure out the whole pollution problem, but eventually figure out it's so hard to become a politician in China. and I didn't really like being a scientist or work for big companies, so eventually we want to become entrepreneurs. So in 2011, we started doing kind of frozen yogurts to try out the business in America, and then 2013, we really launched our own ideas at the moment. It starts with this kind of idea being an entrepreneur urge in the very beginning. But in the meantime, there's another kind of parallel line of love of food and expression culture. So basically, the basic idea is kind of we want a food that we feel connect with, a food that connect with home, that kind of easy food I eat every day when I'm busy. And then eventually figure out this idea, oh, it could be bigger than a food, a restaurant. It could be something we can, as a daily life communication to a bigger audience. So we want to create a restaurant that constantly be scalable to thousands of units. We can communicate with millions of American people, even beyond American or China, can be in the world, communicate different version of modernities, lifestyles, or the ideas of that. So that's kind of what came as the idea of using fast casual as a format with content that is authentic Chinese. We call it Chinese for American food rather than American and Chinese food.
You guys all know what fast casual is, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of all the rage among.
Yeah.
That's why Wiley Dufresne is making donuts. all the grand chefs are trying to figure out. It was really sort of a stampede that was initiated probably by Danny Meyer and Shake Shack, right? And so after Shake Shack made him another $1 billion, all the other chefs are like, they're all looking at it. It's very much of a niche thing, but it's not. It's much easier to execute than to talk about.
So pretty much right now, it's the only market right now is growing as a restaurant market. Like the casual restaurant is shrinking, and fast food is not really growing. So fast casual is just kind of $10-ish fast food, higher quality fast food really make into everybody's life now because everybody wants something fast and high quality. So we want to utilize this opportunity as daily communication to make Chinese food accessible, and more than authentic Chinese food accessible to a lot of audience without thinking this Chinese, because we don't enjoy IKEA furniture because of this IKEA is from North Europe, or enjoy Muji as this Japanese brand. We just enjoy the daily products. So at the same time, we want to create a food that's in that way, as a daily product. And China is the second largest economy in the world. We believe 20 years from now, there's going to be a bunch of brands showing into everybody's life from every corner of the world. And then from now to today, we're going to see that trend starting from our generation, the younger generation, who know themselves, who want to create something better and new, higher quality, without too much focus on ethnicity being exotic.
Do you have a burger equivalent on the menu?
So we have, as a market.
If not, why not?
So as a scientist background, so the idea I see food is not through, the food as a foodie perspective. I see food that people eat most is a food that's symmetric. The shape is symmetric, like the column. It's a big pie of pizza, it's a burger. It's all kinds of different ways people eat with ease. You can really eat it and without thinking about it. It's all mixed well. You don't feel, I can eat this shape, that direction, give it more burden of eating. So kind of
the real next gen.
I think that kind of shape, I look at, this Chinese food database, I can scan this database with this kind of format. With shrimping I eat, grew up with a bowl of noodles, grew up with, this kind of well mixed, but it's easy to eat and it's easy to communicate what's inside. Meat dumplings is hard to communicate. Like we can talk pork and dill, kind of mix it, but it's very hard to communicate what's it taste like. But it's for wraps.
It's good.
Yeah, it's very good. A lot of dumplings is hard to communicate.
Anyway, we talked a little bit about, as Yong, I said, well, where would you rather open this concept here or in China? This sounds like it would do well in China. What do you say?
So this is, our concept is a combination of most cutting-edge fast food industry technology, such as fast casual format with the content of Chinese food. So as Chinese market is not open that well to this kind of higher end fast food yet. So yeah, KFC is really doing well in China, but not necessarily Shake Shack yet. So Chipotle not yet. So we're seeing this trend in the future will become a symbolic brand of better version of fast food in the world. Then we can go back to China as the international Chinese brand.
So you're just testing it here. He also was worried that if he went to China, they'd steal it. It's not reputation. Anyway, so let's talk about a little bit about, you're saying how let's talk about a little bit about the States and about New York and how Chinese food has changed in this country. How have you seen? Well, let's start with this. This is sort of one of my favorite questions. It was given by one of the women who put this panel together, and she asked, "What's the worst, least authentic dish you've seen or been served at a Chinese restaurant in the U.S.?" So we're just going to lay the bottom line, and we'll just talk a little bit about how the American palate has evolved. Because what Americans tend to do, all the food here comes from somewhere else, but whenever America embraces a food from abroad, they tend to muffle it with kindness, and it turns sludgy and heavy, and it has to do that to survive.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, tell me what's the most horrible thing that you've ever, an inauthentic thing you've served? You may love it too, actually.
Yeah.
I try to stay away from them all the time.
Do you remember back when you went to Panda Express and well, I like that expression.
The least authentic Chinese food is actually my favorite. I'm going to give you one example that is true to my heart. Fortune cookie. Fortune cookie, as we all know, that we're for those of us that grew up in the United States, is truly a Chinese-American invention, American-Chinese invention in San Francisco. I visited the store. They're still making fortune cookie from scratch, and that is amazing, right? It reminds us about the Confucius ideas when they give us a quote about whoever they wake up earliest must be the most hardworking, or whatever the quote that brightens your day, or reminds us of vocabularies of Chinese word that I forgot. So it's the least authentic, but my favorite.
Well, let's recast the question. What's your favorite inauthentic Chinese dish?
So there's a food called crab rangoon. So I never know it.
What is crab rangoon?
Crab rangoon is these kind of artificial crab meat mixed with the cheese, and then wrapped into wonton wrappers and deep fried. This is like I learned that name when I played a video game called the Far Cry 4. That kind of tells a story. Hong Kongese in Nepal talk about Chinese food and talk crab rangoon. Like, what's the crab rangoon thing? So actually, I find on the menu to the Chinese takeout next to my restaurant in Yale. So I started eating. It's like so unhealthy, so fake. But I actually secretly craving so much. Interesting dessert. Like always ordered. So that's kind of an interesting part of what we think about Chinese. American Chinese food, it has a history of creating the reason behind it. But in the meantime, it's so different. We call it more like a regional Chinese food in a way.
It's its own cuisine.
Yeah, it's own
It's
cuisine.
its own cuisine. So have you seen the palate change since you've been here? Let's talk about New York. I mean, have you seen, obviously the market's changed a little bit, but have you seen the palate change in different ways?
It changed with Americans' lifestyle, right? In a way, is when the General chicken was created in the 70s. Americans was craving for burgers, right? At the moment they started to really think about saturated fat, all these oils, start really reduce that intake from the 70s until now, getting more and more salad. But I mean, Chinese food haven't been changing so much from then because the restaurateurs in Chinese food room, they always just follow the old pattern without really wanting to change much. But still, like the invasion of spicy Chinese food that's happening in China, also here, more and more Sichuan food. with more strong flavor to a lot of people. It's addictive.
Well, New York loves Sichuan food.
Yeah, I mean, everybody loves
Most
it.
of, most of my Chinese friends in New York really don't like Sichuan food.
Yeah, it's
Especially Sichuan food in New York. They can't stand
It's getting
it.
better.
Especially people in Shanghai. They're like always telling me,
Yeah.
what is your obsession with Sichuan food in this town? I have no answer.
But in China as well, like everybody in Beijing, in Northeast, start to younger people embrace more and more Sichuan food because it's painful. I mean, it's just it's the pain on your tongue and make you obsessed with it. People are prone to pain.
People like what it hurts.
What I've noticed, and you touched on this a little bit, and this has happened all over the food world in New York and in America. You know, you see it in the new generation of chefs who cook Italian cooking. Any cuisine you name or you see it in the sort of bearded Bushwick, beer brewers. You know, it's a craving for authenticity and really for the story of authenticity, for what, where this came from, what this is. And I think you that's what you all sort of share. And I think that kind of authenticity is something that's fairly new. Right, and it's something that works well when you're always having to tell stories because you're always going online or on Yelp. So it works well. So anyway, tell me if that's sort of, you've noticed that too.
I actually, the time I opened Café China, that's the time when American like you visit a Chinese restaurant, they would give you a different special menu. It's full of American dishes. So I struggled a big way with my chefs, trying to convince that authentic Chinese food could survive.
Did you not find authentic Chinese food anywhere in New York? Down in Chinatown, Flushing?
Yeah, everywhere.
You didn't find it anywhere?
I found
The different
like,
kinds.
American Chinese food everywhere.
Okay.
But at the time, authentic Chinese food is very rare. You travel to Flushing to find them. You can't even find them in Chinatown.
Well, Flushing, Chinatown, but yeah. My theory on that is that, and it's not just Chinese, it's Mexican. I think that to have really sort of quote-unquote authentic food, you need a middle-class sort of world. You need, which is why that kind of food flourishes in LA much more than it does here. Here the communities tend to be a little more transient, the kitchen's a little more transient. When I was living in DC, Washington DC, there were great Chinese restaurants in the suburbs which are still there today, which was started by families. Anyway.
Little Tong Noodle Shop
Correct.
does not do authentic Chinese.
Let me just tell you, I just got something on my feed from you guys, or it was about your New Year's, 16-day New Year's celebration, which would be, well, look at it. I'm special. Anyway, this is you can elaborate, but this is what we're talking about, the sort of the story behind it, and you were telling me it's not actually authentic, but it's the guise of authenticity, which is something people crave. Anyway, each day is a new dish, right?
Mm-hmm.
For some New Year's thing.
Yeah. So.
Can I ask one more?
is,
Sorry.
yeah.
I'm also interested how you settled on the Yunnan. I mean, what sort of niche did you see? How did you, how were you influenced in settling on that? So anyway.
There's so many questions. I know. Can I start with the authenticity
Yes,
first?
yes.
Okay. So I'm a little bit of a renegade. The word authenticity. Let's think about it. To whom, to where, and to when. I am I'm a traveler, but I am deeply rooted in the history and culture and the pride of China, right? But every time I go back to Chengdu, my hometown, one of my favorite cousins, long story short, she was 15 years old, I was 17. She's gonna tell me that, oh my God, down that bridge, 2 a.m., we have to go to that Sao place, which is like a barbecue, like a Sichuanese barbecue. They are the most authentic one. I was 17. I got to run away from house, my home, my parents are sleeping. So then, when I was 32, when I went back to China, my cousin now is 30, have a kid. She's like, oh, that place is not authentic anymore. It's the other place, right? But the entire Chengdu created this Chuanchuanxiang Saukhao place. And she has the guts to tell me that person that actually created it, it's not really authentic in her mind. So authenticity to me is fluid. My customers come in, they're authentically Sichuanese. They're like, oh, I heard that you are Sichuanese, but you're doing Yunnan shit, whatever that you're doing, it's great. It's so authentic. But I'm like, hold on a second. Do you mean delicious or do you mean authentic? Because I didn't do anything authentic. I'm a chef, I create and got inspired from the ingredients of Yunnan that I can't get in New York. I'm gonna get it from the farmer's market, I'm gonna get it from Hudson Valley, I'm gonna get it from upstate. But that's a Chinese saying. I'm sure you two will also agree. 一方水土养一方人, which means a square that you live in, the surroundings, cultivate and nurture the square of people. I talked about that during the China Institute special dinner. We as Chinese cooks or Chinese chefs or entrepreneurs, I think we want to bring up the new Chinese food that shift your idea of authenticity. Whatever that is in the area that we cook, the ingredients and the farmers markets and the people that grow in the areas, we are going to cook you Chinese foods come from these ingredients. I'm not going to go and ship the mushrooms and the truffles all the way from Yunnan. It's superbly exotic and extremely precious, but it's too expensive for me. So I'm just going to cook whatever that is good in New York.
So you're not a big fan of that word, right?
I'm a big fan of the word but I also want people to think about what that word means. That's the first question. The second question is why Yunnan?
Yeah.
Should I answer that?
Yeah.
Okay. Growing up in all over Asia, Southeast Asia, I am obsessed with mi xian, the rice noodles. But mi xian, that word is only pertaining to Yunnan. Like if you go to eat rice noodles in Guangdong, it will be mai fan. If you eat rice noodles in Singapore, it will be a dish of laksa or Hokkien mee or any other places that have different names. So I focus on Yunnan because I am a romantic person. I'm a chef. A chef is a romantic person. I think Yunnan is one of the most beautiful province in China. So Simon and I, my partner, I was pitching this idea to a business partner because I'm a chef, so I have to find a partner that invest and support me. So I was like, let's go to Yunnan because Yunnan is almost like a Nordic European. It has 19 different ethnic groups, minority groups. It has the dances, the different languages, the culture. It's very different. It's very revolutionary, but it's also very traditional. It's authentic because every village just does their own thing. So I'm just gonna go travel there, get the best out of it, learn from the people, be very humble, and then bring some things from here to New York, and then figure from there.
So that's a very modern,
It's a
very post-millennial approach, which is the widely refrained approach. Although he wouldn't do it, he's already tried doing that.
Yeah, it's the chef approach.
Okay.
So as Chinese, you're part of the Asian population in America. You're one of the minority groups. It's a funny thing, right? Because when I was in China, I was in the majority side. But in China, there was officially recognized as 56 different race ethnic groups. There's one majority, like 55 minorities, although there could be more. And then every year there's a New Year gala in the national television, and then every year there's probably in the garbage time there's kind of a dance with all kind of ethnic groups using their own traditional costume to dance 2 minutes. And all you know about authenticity, about their different identities, is on that 2 minutes. And when we started the whole restaurant, we think about our name, a brand, all the kind of branding stuff. We figure out Chinese food or Chinese is that kind of a cage that you only can tell a 2-minute story. A panda, a dragon, a bamboo, that's it. you cannot tell like how you live in other kind of you travel. It's very hard to expand the bandwidth, communicate. So if you go to authenticity, that most of the time you get into a little trap that you cannot really escape down the road. So what do we think authenticity is? More on the subjective authenticity, which means there is a goal you believe that's good, and there's a pursuit to achieve that goal. So for example, when I spent my 10 years in Beijing, there is a restaurant owner, and my landlord is a kind of typical Fujianese restaurant owners. He'd been there like from the 80s, working the restaurant, accumulated money, opened the first grocery stores, kind of classic story, opened the restaurant, eventually owned a bunch of buildings. But when we see the authenticity part, it's like I go to his restaurant because of convenience. I ask him, oh, I don't want the steam table stuff, don't give me Junzi chicken. Like, what do you eat today? And then he will show me the secret stuff. Like, this is my Fujianese food. Like, it's very hard to find the right ingredients in America, the right flavor in America, but this is what I really want to eat. And just so much proud of it. So this is kind of part of that authenticity behind him is like, this is what I believe is good, this is how I pursue it. And still, I'm pursuing more and more.
Well, that's interesting because this Fujian, that is the previous gen of immigrant China. Many, certainly in this area, come from Fujian, certainly in Chinatown.
Yep.
And they're not here to think of authentic stuff.
They're survival.
They're here to survive and make a living and get a foot. Like any anyone in any kitchen from anywhere coming to this country. The oldest immigrant story there is. But so it's interesting. But he actually was a chef.
Yes.
Which was
he showed
awesome.
me in the basement that those ingredients like shark skin is not on the list of the menus. Like he just do that for himself and his family. So he showed that food to me, like this is how we eat it.
Right.
I never eat that in China because China is such a huge country. Like never actually eat Fujian food or like Cantonese food at all. Like back in Beijing, they're too expensive. So this is kind of the ingredients we feel. Oh, this is actually the authentic is about the passion. It's about how to define what you like, how you show it. But it's very hard still. Like in America, people appreciate foie gras. Like that's basically liver. People don't eat other kind of liver at all. Right?
Liver.
So, like for Chinese, the best restaurant probably right now, most expensive one, Dadong. They show their most expensive menu item is the sea cucumber. Like Americans don't eat sea cucumber because they don't recognize it. There's no context to think it's going to be $100 per dishes, but that's not worth it, right? So it's kind of the build the context, communicate authenticity, build a story behind it, the whole engineering structure of this branding. And that's what I think a lot of Chinese food need to communicate more and more, occupy more space to communicate the bandwidth. And we are here, actually, the new generation, to open this conversation. And we can present more than just a Chinese food, but more like Zhongguo or other concepts, beans, noodles, all other kind of things. Like ramen in a lot of traditional Japanese restaurants is called Chinese noodle. It's basically a Chinese food in Japan, like, come here.
Let's talk about a little bit about China and the food scene in China. You guys go back and forth a little bit. Even you, go back. And obviously this generation, or at least part of the American Western generation, or the millennial generation, are obsessed with food. And it's something that it's become not just something you eat, but a political statement, a lifestyle, whatever you want. And it's had a huge effect on the way restaurants are open here. Has the same thing happened in China when you go back? Do you see the same thing happen? Is there the same kind of obsession, or is it just a free-for-all?
So one of the most significant events having in China impact on food is 2013 there was like called 8 rules, something like that, from the central government. Want to take down all these expensive restaurants that a lot of corruption happens in there. So they actually put a video camera in front of every expensive places to record everybody who go there. If you're from government, you're done. Like if you ever showed up there, you're done. So that's kind of really opens up all the consumption of food into more like middle class food, like casual eatings, fast food, fast casuals in China. So that's one of the most recent kind of significant event happening in China. But also the other trend is like Sichuan food invasion, all the major cities with spicy food, all this kind of small crayfishes, night food.
I realize that's sort of a stupid question because the Chinese are always food obsessed. That's the culture.
But I mean, the food.
But is it your generation regarded differently than, say, we can say Wait, do they regard it differently?
So
Then we can talk about how it's
Yeah,
changed.
so
Like
you-
you're growing up, like you're growing up in Harbin. When you grow up with your parents, you can answer this.
yeah. So in the 90s,
What was
that's
the idea
different.
of a fancy restaurant when you're growing up in the? You can hold that. Okay.
So in the 90s, the food is about status. So that's Cantonese food go all over China with their subtleness of flavor, with their fresh ingredients, with all their raw food. And people started eating raw fish from Cantonese influence because Cantonese is rich. So that's showing the status that's going in the 90s. And then now it's about the middle class food. When just young people hang out, gonna eat out like somewhere with crayfish, all spicy, like bullfrogs, all that stuff.
Simple, casual, but good.
Simple, casual, good value, all the dollars.
No big banquets.
No,
No
not
sea
anymore.
cucumbers.
Yeah, unless very, very secret, but most of the time it's not anymore. So that's what happened, middle class food.
Talk about a little bit when you were growing up in China. What when you
My hometown is like when I was a kid in the 90s, there was only one restaurant in the whole town. That's what, like Chinese was not like today, like we imagine there's big Chinese food culture. No, like 20 years ago, there's nothing. It's just China started grow from this cultural revolution, and there was not much hospitality experience. There was some lot of food memories in those master chefs, but not necessarily like a industry of everybody can eat out a very mature industry. There was nothing in the 60s.
Dark Ages.
Yeah, dark ages. So we just revived from there with all the rights of economic.
They were the Peking Duck, sort of.
Yes.
If you were a government official.
Yeah, a lot of new dishes were invented in most of 20 years. A lot of traditional dishes as well, but a lot of experience based on that kind of new economic development with more consumptions of daily eat out. So we have more and more new Chinese food. So it's not as authentic as they've been there for 100 years, 200 years, 300, 500 years. But it's just food we developed from our traditions.
My family has a very frugal lifestyle. I think when I was a kid, I remember the family of 5. We have only 2 kilometers of white rice because that's based on supply. So even eating white rice feels like heaven. So restaurant is something out of reach. So I didn't grow up, going to fancy restaurants or eating out. It's quite a big deal. I remember when I was 6 years old, to celebrate my birthday, my father took me to a Russian restaurant in Harbin because we have a significant Russian population in my city, and that was a big deal.
What was that meal like?
Hmm?
What was that meal like?
We have some thick bread,
Wet
something
soup.
so hard
Yeah.
you can hate someone with that. And then you have very creamy soup. You have sausage. Sausage is very delicious. It's one of the popular food
It's like
in my
polished
hometown.
sausage.
Yeah, big
Yes.
protein. Yeah.
But I enjoyed that very much. So I didn't grow up liking Chinese food because I thought, as a kid, I prefer something simple. I prefer something Western. I think everything about the West has a very clean and fanciful touch. I wish I can say something like I'm serving the food I like as a child, but unfortunately that wasn't my story. But when I went to Beijing, when I became a teenager, the first food I had was Sichuanese, and that really blew up my mind.
So that was a sort of an awakening. And it's true for the whole generation. You see it differently, right? Is that why you opened a Sichuan restaurant?
Yes.
So Sichuan, that was your idea of great cuisine.
Absolutely. That's my memory of the fine food and fine experience, because it's something very. It's the opposite of Western cooking. It breaks all the rules. It's using it's not about emphasizing certain flavors of certain spices. It's about throwing so many different ingredients, dozens of ingredients. I saw my chefs doing that every day. into the pot and come up with something really great, something very flavorful, very balanced, and something very exciting.
What was the restaurant? Was there one restaurant in Beijing that you went to? There was that famous one, which Deng Xiaoping used to go to, and all his official, part of the China
I
Club.
don't think they exist anymore.
Oh.
I mean, the food in China, the restaurant scene in China is much more like the fashion scene in New York. It's ever changing, every season, every month. And Chinese people, they're the best critics, I think.
Well, you're on WeChat.
I mean,
Yeah. Simone, look at you. Share some Proustian memories. Goals.
The definition of you being a child that is going to become independent or adult is when you are 5.5 years old. Your grandma says, go down the street and get me a bottle of soy sauce. So those were the memories. Go down the street in the corner and get me a bucket of tofu. Because in the old days, when I remember growing up in Chengdu or Beijing or Shenzhen, every store is specialized in something. This is the soy sauce store, this is the pickle store, that's the tofu store, that's the soybean store, and that's the vegetable store, and that's the oxtail store. So you ought to go to every one of them because they take food seriously. That is some of the most beautiful memories that I would always have, because us as a restaurant is ambitious enough to want to make our own soy sauce, make our own tofu. The Japanese does that, right? The Japanese are very serious about their craftsmanship. Me as a chef, I think the Chinese should also be thinking about the foundations and the base flavors. So that's one thing. Another thing is, I went to Beijing, I went to Yunnan last year. I went to one of the most famous Yunnanese restaurant in Beijing. It's called Colorful Yunnan. The chef is so welcoming and it's so humble. So they fly some of the best ingredients from Yunnan to Beijing. During the seasons, they have some of the most exotic mushrooms that we don't have it here. Truffles, and then they get turtles, buffalo fish, abalones. They have the ability to do that because they are big restaurants that also serve the middle class, in addition to the governments. They're saying, the government banquets and dinners not of this next 5 years, but we're going to serve the middle class, some good ingredients. So they can afford that as a majorly big restaurant, chain restaurants in the whole China, called Yunnan, Colorful Yunnan. But where do all the good food come from? That's the biggest lesson and inspiration I learned. Is from the villages and the towns in China. The developed cities are very flamboyant and glamorous. Shanghai, Beijing, even Chengdu, Guangdong, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Macau. They are very exciting. But if you want to search deeper, go deeper into China, go find the genuine people. They are obsessed about actually organic food, or they take their nutrients in the next generation seriously. They are the ones that are in the more rural areas. Just drive a little bit, a few hours, take the train off Shanghai. You'll find some genuine farmers cooking food. This is where, as a chef, I would recommend you guys to explore.
Okay. Couple of questions, then we can open it up to whatever you want to, whatever comes to your mind. Will you? Who do you think are tougher critics as eaters, Americans or Chinese? Tougher critics as eaters. I mean, I'm sort of interested in how were you surprised by your success in this country and how Americans just go, oh, it's delicious, I love it. But of course, New Yorkers pride themselves on being very sophisticated because New Yorkers just love food. So anyway. How do the markets differ and the palates differ a little bit? I mean, just talk about that, and then we can open up the question.
I'm very I'm very surprised about my restaurant's success because I underestimated the passion, like how obsessive New Yorkers are with food. I think they are going to such an extreme. And also, this is a very interesting time. Before, I came to this country to study, to be part of my graduate school. And at the time, that was the only reason and the purpose and the method for us to come to this country. Unless if we, become black people, like, come here illegally, right? But nowadays, it's all very different. People come here to travel for real. They come here to study, to work, to invest. So that's, the new wave of Chinese population, Chinese visitors. And, as entrepreneurs, we benefit out of that. So that's great. And, but what I like the most about New York is that, I think it has my perfect customers. New Yorkers are very sophisticated, very curious people. They have a good palate, and they are always very open-minded to try something authentic and new.
Anything to add on that?
Yeah,
Do you think your Yunnan concept would fly in New Haven?
yeah. I think let's just focus on doing really, really good food. Good ingredients, good integrity. So, a humble little Tong Noodle Shop got reviewed by some of the best critics, very, very good reviews.
Not me.
I've been impressed yet. But other ones. And then I tell my cooks and my front of house, my servers, I'm like, they are great, but they are not our audience. Who are our audience? It's the people that come to Little Tong 3 times a week, 2 times a week, that they think about us. It's the community. We are located in East Village, so most of the time the people in East Village, and half of the time people in Upper East Side, Upper West Side, downtown, they all heard about us and they come. They bring their friends. So my customers, my audience, the people that like my food, like our food, are the people that come here, to come to us all the time. So we are here to please them. We are here to pass the message about good ingredients, good philosophies of Chinese cooking, and if they like it, come every day.
So we are surprised and not surprised for the reactions, because as a restaurateur, startup people, like you adopt a whole kind of methodology of entrepreneurship, which became a very important part is the kind of minimum viable product. So which means we spent 2 years before opening first restaurant to conceive the idea, define the brand, go through the whole Yale Entrepreneur Institute incubation process, like test our product in classroom. First test a Bing wrap to people who just taste the flavor, and then after test a few hundred samples, and then we tested the whole kind of put together a table, test the process of coming here, assemble, see the ingredients, react to the way we communicate, and then assemble the whole Bings with them. So it's a process of de-risk your product until we actually spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to even open the first restaurant. So we open the first restaurant, yeah, we see the reaction that we expected, our research, and we see Americans feel very easily accessible to the food, they see the communication easily, and we see Chinese feel, oh, surprisingly, the food actually very authentic to my flavor palette. So that's when we see the reaction. Okay, 3 months from opening at Yale, we can, okay, let's go to New York now. So we start finding locations 3 months after we open Yale. So everything is as we design and plan from very beginning, step by step, until today, we're still doing that way, doing the whole data analysis, design in a very advanced way to figure out where we're going, market, the rent, structure, everything. So it's more like a business operation in a startup. So it's not that surprising. But of course, when we see actually a lot of Americans started eating us like 6 times in 3 days. Like, oh, is that obsessive to a lot of people? And we see, we see some people order from Uber, like literally every dinner, sometimes lunch and dinner. Okay, you can stop that. Run out of steam.
Good. All right, do we have any questions? You in the back.
I got one. So what did your parents think when you first told them that you wanted to do restaurant and food? And you know, you're at Yale studying environmental science. You all have, you know, very high-level education. What was your parents' reaction?
So it needs time to brainwash them. As a entrepreneur, like that's your natural kind of skill. You have to do that, be able to create dreams so that people can make a dream together. So because I have the credibility with them that when I want to do something, I always make it happen. So when I see something, even they don't see it, they kind of trust me to actually make it happen. So that's kind of initial that. And anyone can tell a story of Jack Ma, all kind of successful restaurateur, not restaurateur, but entrepreneur stories. Like all these people quit their school or don't finish their degrees, Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, all these people make them kind of, okay, you didn't finish school, but it's fine. You know what they're doing. So that's kind of what I started.
In my case, my parents, they didn't trust me at all. So they were mad, and you know, they questioned my ability to, you know, be an entrepreneur. And you know, I had zero experience in restaurants. I hardly go out eating in restaurants. So my father-in-law, he was like, it's either the restaurant or, you know, the relationship. So pick one between. It was a sad story, but you know, I hope nowadays they can become more cheerful and happier.
He hasn't been back to the restaurant.
He tried. He liked our tumpo pork very much.
I'm the only child. So
Use the other microphone.
I'm the only child, so after 7 years, they have no choice but to love me back. So now they're trying to come to the States and retire because they're like, I can peel tea eggs, I can grow some crops. I'll be your parents. I love you again. So it's all good.
Where are they living now?
They're in Singapore.
They're in Singapore.
They're in Singapore.
Oh.
Oh, Simone, your restaurant is gratuity free. It's included, right? So can you talk about that decision and kind of what made you take that decision?
Can you repeat the question?
So the lady here.
The question was, the restaurant is gratuity free, right? So the question is, why did you make that decision and how's it going?
I thought it was a brilliant idea when my partner Simon proposed it. He was like, are you daring enough to do it? Do you think we should do it? So, and I was like, yeah, why not? It's my first restaurant. Let's do everything we want to do. Let's take the bucket list. So it's gratuity free, but I didn't add any tips. We didn't add any tips to the food costs. The reason why we did it is because I come from a cook background. We have a minimum wage. When I was cooking, it was $7. Now it's $13. We're not making a lot of money to survive. We work 18 hours a day to make the food. The servers has tips. For Little Tong, Simon calculated that if we are busy, the servers could take home $200-300, but a cook is probably $60 to $78, depending on how many hours you work. So that's what we did it. We just did it. We trust that our food is good enough to attract enough people. There will be 30% of people that are not happy or don't understand why we are gratuity free. But the rest of the world are doing it. So we just want to, perhaps be the pioneer of the future. Yeah.
What is a classic Chinese breakfast? I am so intrigued. Offers up with skyrocketing New York rents, you would think you'd want to generate additional revenues. And personally, I'm sick and tired of American scrambled eggs and American Rice Krispies.
I want to answer that too. I want to answer that.
And then the same observation can be made for about Greek and Italian. But is it possible that you could offer up something early in the morning that would intrigue the American market, that would be healthy, that would generate income for you guys?
I think it's a good
Mr.
question.
Pascal probably giving this a thought.
Yeah, let me think about that. So it's very hard to ask that Chinese food context, because if you ask what's a European classic breakfast, like what we make European food, like in all different regions of China, like, there are all different ways of eating breakfast. So for us, it's kind of choosing what's kind of our filter to find the right Chinese food formats into this restaurant format that we can communicate easily to merge into kind of accessibility to American audience and also kind of familiar, authentic to Chinese audience as well. That's kind of our rules. And then the format easy to take out because we're catering this kind of younger generation who has a busy life, who take this to the classroom, who take this to the work. So it has to be somewhere you kind of sit down. It's not like you eat a congee, you sit down and spend 20, 50 minutes, something like that. It's more like a bao or like a wrap, something easy to go. So we haven't made sure our exact format yet. So that's why our chef is traveling in China, in Sichuan, Shanghai, in Northeast, in Beijing to find this kind of everyday life we had and find enough database that we can come back to see which one we want to produce here with our settings, because we don't need Chinese chef in our whole restaurant. We also use our machines to make the food great and consistent. So that's kind of our kind of format behind everything. We want to figure that, but we want to target that eventually to utilize the real estate, but also provide service to the people like us who want a healthy, great breakfast with affordable price.
I think for Chinese food, there are so many varieties of items can be great breakfast items. I mean, the city I grew up from, we have something very simple. It's called 大饼油条. So it's soya milk and a fried like a flour steak. It's very tasty. It's very crunchy, but it gives you a lot of calories. So energizing a day. It's
like
delicious. It's deliciously simple, but it's not that healthy. But when I traveled to the south, I found people from the south, they are having more abundant choices there. I think dim sum, they made the best breakfast choice. I have the dim sum made by our chefs all the time as breakfast. I think it's a more balanced diet, and you can go very fast if you are in a hurry, or you can enjoy that with tea and spend hours with them. They're delicious.
Like in Hubei, they make spicy noodles for the breakfast. Like, oh my gosh, we eat spicy noodle in breakfast. I know that it's from north. So there's all kind of varieties behind.
Agree with all of them. 大饼油条 is excellent. Soy milk, amazing. Soy milk with porridge, a little bit of chicken, a little bit of dim sum. Chinese people eat all sorts of stuff for breakfast. We believe that breakfast is the first meal and it better be full. And then it goes in the graph like eat a lot of breakfast and then slowly less lunch and then little dinner. But great question. It's our future concept to make amazing breakfast, Chinese breakfast.
Yeah, so I'm actually from a social company. We provide POS for the breakfast, and I say a lot of friends are our clients. I think we're already number one in the Asian market share in US. So when we see our clients in the past 4 years, we see a trend from switching from the traditional Chinese restaurant owners to a more younger generation like Yong and maybe the speakers today. So my question is, we hear about you are talking about authentic Chinese food a lot today, but does it really matter to the restaurant owners like Café or like Junzi? And second, does it really matter for food critics like Adam? Like, well, Chinese would definitely matter. Like, we want authentic Chinese food, but does it really matter for you guys?
For me, it does. I think authenticity is, something we aim for. I have a friend who had big influence on me. He said, if you learn something, first off, you have to learn from the past, so you can become really good. And I think, as Chinese person, we grew up in a country with, thousands years of history. That's, one of the biggest treasure. So, to stick to food, authentic, and to learn from that, coming up with something interesting and new, I think that's Café China and China Blue and Birds of Feathers principle. So for me, it's a big deal.
I think it's a bigger question to eventually, like in this future era, what humanity is, what we want, where we're going. So it's in a way that we always share the same kind of idea or feelings that we want to do something that's true. So authenticity is a reflection of the pursuit of truthfulness. So every country, every different backgrounds always want to communicate something that's true and sincere. And everyone want to accept this is true and sincere, other than you just provide some fake information, making you doesn't feel that I connect with the world anymore. So eventually, they were struggling to communicate when the bandwidth of communication is really, really small to communicate the whole picture. But when we expanded that, then we can communicate that, then it's actually very important to be true. So not necessarily authentic in that word, but it's actually subjective. Authenticity means we pursue something, we believe that's true, we share with people, actually make people accept it. So start to make people believe the world is open. There's a lot of greatness beyond what we see from our horizon right now. And this kind of open worldness is where we believe in the future. That's why we call that Junzi. So Junzi means, traditional Chinese means a person with integrity. That was invented 2,000 years ago, talk about people with people. It's about being together, not the same, being not a tool. So that's all very, very post-capitalism, about this kind of multicultural world, about this kind of anti-materialism world we want to be in the future. That's why we have fast casual. Like, we don't want to be fast food slave. We don't want to be feed with the garbage food. So we want to try something that actually more and more true and real. So we get to stay in touch with real ingredient rather than just eat this kind of pink slime from somewhere McDonald's serve. So it's all from there. But it's eventually become authentic. We trust each other. Everybody's genuinely creating something that's completely good. We don't have separate menus. This is for American, I don't care, but they're like, this is for me, I love it for my family. So we want to combine them. So in Junzi, we want people to share the same menu and just use the same language to communicate. That's what we want.
I just have one sentence, one word called 饮水思源. We drink the water and we remember where it comes from. So because we understand and we try to know the roots, therefore we can go beyond that. We can be modernized. We can move forward. So 20 years, 30 years, 50 years down the road, they will call us authentic, but we were renegades. We were adventurous then here.
Yes, I have one question for Yiming. So if you don't have much experience before you go to run your restaurant business, how did you train your chef and how did you design the menu?
Well, this is New York. New York. You don't find anyone in New York. And the chef, when we first met, he gave me 3 pages of menu with almost 400 items. That's how great Chinese food is. It's a varieties. So it's a subtraction process. But I try to sit down, cut down dishes that's not authentic, or not tasty, or not interesting enough. So, we came up with a menu of about 50 or 60 items. But trust me, in New York, you can find anyone or anything. That's the beauty of New York.
Yeah,
struck by how few high-end Chinese restaurants are in New York, and I wonder why that is. You get a lot of interesting new places in the East Village, but nothing like the fancy restaurants we had in Beijing. And I'm wondering why that is. Are Chinese restaurants stuck in some sort of image of being inexpensive? And is there a cautionary tale in the problems that Alder has had opening in that was very successful Chinese chain? Really not.
So the question is why are there not more high-end Chinese restaurants in New York? And it's linked to a very lavish new restaurant called Dadong, which I actually reviewed quite harshly, and which people who come along and give 5 stars to. So it's all gonna work out for everybody. I think I'll just say mine. Just so you pay attention to the dining scene in New York, there aren't many high-end anythings anymore. The era of the great destination, Midtown, dining palace, like Le Bernardin, or like you could name them. I've been reviewing restaurants for 15 years. They're still the same restaurants. Maybe when I started reviewing, people would open that kind of ambitious restaurant maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Now it's maybe once every 2 or 3 years. And it really has to do mostly, it's got to do with a couple of things. It's got to do with tastes that we're talking about. The new generation likes quality, but also simplicity and quote-unquote authenticity, which is not what high-end dining is about. And also the cost of opening a restaurant in Manhattan. That's just ridiculous. And so when the cost is that high, you tend to rely, if you're paying that kind of money, especially in Midtown, on formulas. Or if you're like Dadong, you've got huge amounts of money and you're a chain, basically. Which is why I think they have problems. That they've expanded like a chain, much the way Nobu would expand in Beijing. It's just or Carbone, if you know what Carbone is, opening in Hong Kong. It's just a fraught concept for them. And anyway, but high-end, it's a high-end stuff, right? It's a tough stuff. Yeah, it's tough.
There is a lot more challenges that just it doesn't. Labor, skill, ingredients, craft, and then to deal with a whole new environment and whole new systems from Beijing. It is very, very ambitious what they are doing, and they all definitely have the most intentions to do it good, to do it proud. But I think it's a learning process for them and a learning process for all of us who want to eventually do good for Chinese cuisines and do a high-end restaurants. It is, as long as I know it is in Little Tong or in our group's intentions to do good. Hence the 16 days Chinese New Year's. Each day is a different story because traditionally we celebrate 15 days of Chinese New Year's. Each day has a meaning. Each day has a story. Each day has many histories and many stories.
The Little Tong model is the dominant model. And you have restaurants like Little Tong literally opening everywhere. In all the boroughs around here, probably in cities around the country, right? They're all different kinds. So that's the way things are going. It's a quality neighborhood dining.
I have a question. There are many Chinese restaurants here in New York. So how do you distinguish your restaurant from others, or maybe I can read or?
Little Tong opened merely 10 months ago. Before that, we have, humbly as I know of, just a couple of Michelin places, but none of it in Manhattan. But surrounding me right now, to the next 6 months, we will have probably 5 to 7 Michelin places. Yunnan.
They're everywhere
Yunnan. Which is great because when I was a kid, I'm telling you, I am obsessed with rice noodles. I eat pho, I eat Michelin, I eat any sort of like rice noodles, Cantonese. I think it's a healthy way of eating noodles. I love it. If there's a competition, that's great. It's healthy. Because in China, in Asia, every other corners, every other blocks, tens of 20s of restaurants that are serving noodles. It's a healthy environment. We want more and more people to taste amazing food. If you like this store other than me, great, go there. If you like meat because of other reasons, come here. So we have more options for customers. That's all great.
What are your thoughts on organic ingredients, and do you see a market demand for organic Chinese food in New York City in the coming future?
There is so much demand on organic food in China. People have no idea how to get them because they're obsessed about it. But they are trying to establish these regulations of Chinese organic food in China, right? But it's a very complicated process. As we all know in the States, it took us a few more than a decade to establish that. So great, love that. And as a chef, I don't really market organic food. I don't market where my ingredients come from, but I know where my ingredients come from, and I take it very seriously. Because just like any serious Chinese cooks or any chefs in the world, ingredients, it's our first and most important thing. If we don't have good ingredients, I can't serve you good food. It comes with the sauces, the condiments, everything.
As my background in environmental science, it's very hard to say organic is more environmental friendly, given the whole environmental consumption that we need to have organic food. Because hunter-gatherer could be more organic down the road, but the whole earth cannot support 7 billion people to be hunter-gatherer. So to support that kind of population, there's kind of technology that make it not that organic sometimes. So organic should become the demand into high-end cuisines, as we want more like human touch on it. That's more expensive. But in the meantime, for a lot of food, to make it affordable, accessible to a lot of people, sometimes being strict organic is not the solution for that. But it's a market trend. People have demand on it.
I agree with you though. The organic does not mean the best quality either. But it's just something that we understand and we feel comfortable, we feel safe to eat.
It's a marketing tool in a way.
Yeah.
Is it marketing tool in China?
It's a marketing tool. Is everybody wants?
Is it all fake? Is it fake organic? Is it in China?
It's not super fake.
A lot of it's fake organic.
Yeah, it's
here.
a loopholes if you want to take advantage of.
Systems needs to be
Yeah.
established, law and regulations.
Few more questions. Yeah.
How important is sustainability with your menu and in your restaurant and your culture?
So, still, my background is doing the environmental study and on the carbon cycle. So sustainability means in a way is the climate change issues, all that behind it. So we think sustainability is achieved through people eating more and more vegetable-based proteins, such as tofu can make it delicious and accessible to a lot of people. So that people eat 5% of tofu in Chipotle, but eat 25% in my restaurant. That will reduce a lot of energy consumptions. We consume animal parts that is not that popular in America, but it's actually primarily cut in China, so people will kill less animals down the road. So that's kind of we see how we can achieve sustainability in the larger scales. But in one restaurant, use compostable bowls. It's really dependent on the regulation in New York City. So if you recycle something, like New York City wants you to clean it, then recycle it. As a fast food restaurant, how do you clean bowls first, like wash it, and then get back to the bag? So it's very hard for the whole streamline to recycle for sustainability. It's a whole system.
Last question. Sorry, go ahead.
99.5% we have no food loss. We use everything Chinese way. And then if there is any lost, we try to find charities that we can donate. Also, we believe, as Little Tong, we believe in community driven. We also support a lot of women, a lot of fresh graduates out of culinary school, a lot of charities that we can work with in the East Village. Right now we are only located in East Village, hopefully more. So we believe in sustainability in many ways, not just food, but relationships with the people that we work and live with.
For us, we try to achieve that by offering, all the parts of the animal, including the skin, the head, the tails, everything. So, that we make the food industry more sustainable.
Last one.
Hi. So we all know that restaurants are really, like, it's one of the hardest businesses. It has relatively a low margin. So I just want to know, like, what is the, the most difficult problems that you guys as entrepreneurs have been encountered with?
Too much, too many.
Eventually,
Another hour's conversation.
eventually for us is think about if we want to open a 2,000 units in America, that means there's going to be tens of thousands of people in our company to help create this food. So every social problem in America is our problem. Undereducated, minimum wage, so all the problems are our problem. We see our employees suffer from poverty. We saw the people who don't understand the food actually eat unhealthy in our staff. We see all these problems we want to challenge is the same consistent with Americans' problem as kind of divided America, as kind of structural poverty, structural unemployed. And that's going to be challenging in the future as well, like the technology, the machines replacing more and more people. And what to think about the restaurant industry, like more labor supplies, but less customers? That kind of thing will always make us wonder what's in the future going to happen. And we think this is the real challenge as a restaurant we want to open as a broader platform for everybody.
For me, the challenge is always the people. When we first opened Café China, it was just myself, my partner, 2 servers, and 5 chefs. That's all. So that was 9 people in total. But right now we have a team of 180 people. So it's a sizable group, and the workforce we found, before they joined us, China Blue, Café China, and Birds of Feather, they are the typical chefs and servers from restaurants from Chinatown or from Flushing. So basically, we want to inject our own ideals and styles to, bring the best out of that, a very different mindset and work habits and the skills. So that's quite a challenge.
Labor, highest challenge, people, psychology, economics. I have servers from the Bronx, the Queens, Flushing, Turkey, Australia. In the kitchen, I have Uncle Mike, who's fresh off the boat from China in the 80s. Legendary story. This guy's amazing. And then the rest of it are all Latinos and people from the Bronx, because they need jobs. And then we hire them because they're hardworking. And then we instill this culture. We let them learn Chinese. We let them taste the Chinese ingredients. They come to love with it, and they feel pride, and they feel proud to introduce it to the rest of the community. So yeah, we are a Chinese restaurant, as we are Chinese restaurants in New York. We get everybody to come join the party.
Well, thank you guys. Keep up the good work.